delay or ado, let's just continue because I have many more questions to answer. Our next question from Dacky Smurf. Dacky Smurf asked the following. A few years ago, you had mentioned a conversation with your mother about establishing a 10-year plan to grow your business. It's actually completely incorrect. We'll talk about that in a moment. You also had mentioned over a year ago you had an interest in growing your brand by eventually establishing a network of content for your businesses. As times change quite frequently as a content creator and as things stand now, where do you in your career as a content creator, where do you see it going in 10 years? Any steps you've taken to grow your channel moving forward? Is there any plan to one day retire from streaming, gaming, or other content? When you're able to retire from streaming, what would you like to have done with your channel and content? Is there any way that you'd like to finally leave the platform, whichever one that may be at the time? Let's actually, answer each piece because actually some of this is incorrect information. Okay, so in 2019, things were a lot different. The world was a lot different 3 years ago. Let's be honest here. Okay, pre-COVID and everything. And in 2019, at that time, a few things were happening. Okay, number one, I'll just be honest with you. I really feel like there was a lot more toxicity towards me and my content then. All right, I do feel that, how can I say it? Like, I've made a lot of improvements and changes in the last few years that people really like. And a lot of people who used to be hard on me have laid off and said, okay, he's changed, But back then was kind of some of the big hatred against me, right? And it was like every little thing I did, people were so angry and upset that even me going to Connecticut, visiting my parents, who are getting elderly now, are having health problems. They can't even travel out here to visit me anymore. So I made the plans that I was going to go visit them with Kat, who at that point was my fiance. But our secret plans that we didn't reveal to anyone is that we were going to get married while we were in Connecticut. Why did we have to do it as a secret? Because again, we were actually like afraid that there'd be people who would actually try to fuck with our wedding and do fucked up things because people were so messed up with the things they were doing and saying about us on the internet. Okay? So that being said, 2019 was a different time. I was also in the midst of an insane amount of problems with my debt, where things were coming to a head. I couldn't afford to pay my bills anymore. A lot of things were happening. And basically, the journey to Connecticut that year was for many reasons. Yes, to see my parents in person because I hadn't seen them for many years, and maybe to kind of say maybe this will be the last time I see them in person because they have health problems. That was number one. Number two, to get married because it made sense to get married with my parents. Got a nice meal together, had some family members that were there, as opposed to just trying to figure out something to do for ourselves out here, which probably wasn't going to happen. And then number three, to talk about the future. And I had a major conversation with my mother at that point. And essentially we came to two decisions. Decision number one was that I was going to basically declare bankruptcy. That there was no way that I was going to move forward with my life with the amount of debt that I had. I was never going to pay it off. So I had to declare bankruptcy. That was decision number one. Okay? Decision number two was that I was going to have a plan, essentially a 10-year plan, where I was going to try to phase myself out of being a YouTube content creator and try to get a real life job. Because basically things you could see, like the money I was making on YouTube was declining at the time. People were hating on me all over the internet, not liking me, shitting all over me. And we were at the point where basically the harassment had gotten so bad. Like my mother was like, how could you go on with your life, right? If this is going to be every moment is going to be harassment and messed up things happening to you. And I'm like, I guess you're right. She's like, you're not beholden to people on the internet. Your life is your own. Yet the life that you're living because you're on the internet with your job, you kind of are beholden to them, which is stupid. Why have your whole life be controlled by these people on the internet? And I was like, you're kind of right. So at that point, the goal was declare bankruptcy, all right, get to a point where things were a little bit more financially stable, and then eventually try to find a way to phase myself out of being a content creator on the internet. Okay? Okay. But what happened? Within less than a year, right, of me having that conversation with my mother, COVID happened. And what happened during COVID? Literally the world changed. Businesses, jobs, entire industries. And at that point, all right, if I had decided that I was going to quit content creation, right, and I started phasing out, imagine if I had tried to get a real world job. I probably would have lost it. Imagine, right? if I decided that's it for me, I'm going to just, throw in the towel and go get a brick and mortar job, maybe 2 brick and mortar jobs because I would have to, because there's no way I'm going to get a job that's going to pay as much as me being a YouTuber, honestly. Um, I'd be in a situation where basically I'd probably lose everything. I wouldn't be able to afford my house anymore. I wouldn't be able to afford any, I lost everything I have. And having bad credit, I don't even know where I would have lived because when you have no credit, you can't even get like a background check passed to even get an apartment or anything. So I don't know what would have happened to me in my life at that point if I made that decision. Oh, I'm just gonna quit everything and start over. It might have been a disastrous choice for me. Okay, and what we actually saw during those COVID years, which I would say 2010, 2011 were probably the 2010, 2011. Let's try that again. 2020, 2021 were probably the COVID years, right? What we saw, all right, is that basically all this stuff in real life is kind of weird. Like, out of all the jobs I've ever had, all right, the in-person stuff has never been stable. And I've worked fast food, and I've worked at various retailers like Best Buy, Circuit City, places like that. Um, I've had a bank job where I worked for a bank doing loans and credit cards. All right. I worked for a helicopter company for 4.5 years, a company that, by everything they were telling me, all the extra work and time and everything I was doing was setting myself up for a lifetime of success at this company. This was going to be my career forever. And then they laid me off. So everything I've done as an in-person job, all I've learned is as follows. It's never stable. It's never guaranteed. It doesn't matter how hard you work. It doesn't matter, how well you do. You're a disposable asset on a spreadsheet. You're just a number. You're a cog in a machine. And at any moment, if something goes wrong, you get tossed out the back door like yesterday's garbage. And they don't give a shit, right? If anything, ever since I became my own boss, I've figured out that as long as I stay the course, as long as I remain positive, as long as I keep putting out content that's meaningful to people, my viewership, my followers, my true fans have followed me from YouTube to Blip to YouTube to Twitch to YouTube to Twitch to YouTube, back and forth all over the place, and they still follow me, they still support me no matter what happens through thick and thin, right? So, if anything, what I've learned is it's not necessarily about it's not really about the job, it's more about me. As long as I stay true to myself and people like who I am, then they're going to follow me and support me no matter where I go. All right? Now, here's the thing. What I've come to realize in the last couple of years. There is absolutely no way that I can continue to be who I am on the internet, a full-time gamer forever. That's impossible. There's no way that's going to work. I'm going to get older, right? I'm going to become different. That's just what happens when you get older. As you age, things change. And what's going to happen is ultimately, and what a lot of these other YouTubers have realized too, it's not about the constant grind of gaming anymore. It's more about having that variety where you have a commentary that people like. If people like you, then obviously they want to hear what you have to say about various different topics, right? So, what you've noticed in the last year, right, is that I've veered away from doing full-time gameplay and I do a podcast every day, right? I've integrated new things into my schedule, React events where you guys have really enjoyed the commentary that I've done on things like these documentaries. Tomorrow we're going to do a really special and fun advertisements React event that I think you guys are going to love. I can't believe the ads that are nominated are going to be so hilarious to react to. I can't wait. So because of this diversification that I'm doing, I'm actually realizing that what could happen is, even though maybe this channel will never really grow for gaming, I could maybe diversify myself in other ways, and those will see some growth. All right? And by the way, I'm happy with where I am right now anyway, as long as I'm not seeing a plummeting of following or a plummeting of support, then I'm okay. And I haven't seen that at all. Admittedly, this gaming season, we've seen a plateau, right? Where we're not seeing any influx of new viewers or anything for new releases anymore. But at least it doesn't mean I'm going out of business, right? So The 10-year plan originally was, hey, within 10 years of 2019, let's make it that you no longer are doing this for a living as YouTuber, you've got a brick and mortar job. COVID ruined all of that. Because if anything COVID showed us, nothing is for real, nothing, at any point, this whole, brick and mortar shit could just go away. Any sickness, anything could just shut everything down. So you can't rely on that. Okay? And by the way, I would have to do brick and mortar like retail jobs and stuff. No one's going to pick me up in an office. I've been out of the industry since 2010. Who the hell is going to pick me up for like a customer support job or anything in the helicopter or aviation industry? No one. I've been out of the job for too long. You see? So basically, that's out. There's no way I could do an in-person job and be successful because that's just not what I've experienced in anymore. But what the 10-year plan has essentially evolved into is within 10 years, diversify myself enough on the internet that now I'm not just the gamer guy anymore, right? Now I'm known for other things, right? You can watch my podcast, you can come to a React event, you could see Phil do other shit and not even care about the gameplay, and that's all well and good. And maybe because of that, there'll actually be some potential for growth as opposed to, oh, it's just Phil sitting here playing games all day and he'll never grow, right? So that's really the new 10-year plan, even though it's not new. And we're essentially 3 years into that plan. This year was a huge year for me for that, okay? And yes, there'll be more in the future that I'm going to be talking about very soon. Some plans in particular for next year, some announcements that I have, some new stuff coming that I think you guys are going to really like. I'm not sure exactly how 100% how it's going to be implemented yet, but I've got things in the works for 2023 based on a lot of things that have happened this year that I think you guys particularly are going to really enjoy. Okay? So, I'll let you know more about that as we get closer to it, but as of now, yes, the plan is in effect, and diversification is in effect, and it's not always just going to be about Phil playing games moving forward. That's failing. Let's be honest. There's an audience for it. I love doing it. I'm going to keep doing it, but that can't just be what I do forever. We've got to diversify, and I'm working on that right now. So there you go.